Welcome to Dorks on Sports, podcast about four dorks talking about sports. My dorky panelists joining me here, as always, Curtis Eastwood. Curtis, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah. Alana, how's it going over there?
Doing all right. I picked my favorite moment from Futurama.
Yeah, I like that. You got
this game is Zoidberg yelling, "Your music's bad and you should feel bad." And I feel like that's kind of a little bit of how I feel about DJ Dallas right now.
Ooh, we'll talk about that, but that was just a weird play all around. Millie, how's it going over there?
It's going great, thanks.
Yeah. How's see, I have to ask you about your fantasy life because I'm terrible at fantasy football and so I don't do it anymore, and I just live my fantasy football life vicariously through you.
Well, I am here to tell you that this week you're feeling pretty good.
All right.
After two losses last week, this week we got 2 wins.
Congratulations.
One was a pillow fight, but the other one was a sound beating, so that felt good.
Did you have the 49er defense?
No, I didn't.
You needed the 49er defense.
And what's funny is I was chided because I had them week 1 and I dropped them because I didn't want to play against Seattle. I try not to, whenever possible, I avoid rooting against the Seahawks in lieu of fantasy wins. But in retrospect, that was a mistake. But I won anyway. So see, it worked out fine. But I am in, yet again this year, a guillotine league. And for this one, it's 3 weeks before we chop the first head. So it's a combination of points for 3 weeks. And I'm not doing great. Not doing great. Had a lot of hurt players. And when you have whatever we have 16 teams, somebody goes down and there's really not a good replacement. You're just randomly throwing darts. So it's a little scary. I'm in like 12 out of 16 right there. So I need a good week out of my guillotine league, but things are all right. We're figuring it out. We'll see what happens this week with some of these guys.
Yeah. Who are some of your best guys?
Well, I've got Patrick Mahomes on one team, but my pat on the back to myself is definitely Jalen Hurts.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Jalen's my boy. He's my guy.
Hurts looked really good.
I ride with Jalen.
Yeah, in a trash setup in the NFC West, Jalen and the Eagles might be rising up into the cream. I think I mean I shit endlessly over the 49ers last week, and when they played Seattle on Sunday, they looked pretty legit. The Seahawks couldn't run the ball. The Seahawks couldn't defend the run. It just seemed like they were getting bullied in every phase of that game. The only points they can put up on the board was blocked field goal for a touchdown, which admittedly was pretty fun, but that was about the only exciting play out of the Seahawks in that game. Trey Lance went out and Jimmy G came in, and honestly, I think that saved the 49ers season, and I see them as a favorite in the NFC with Jimmy G behind center. But Curtis, what did you see in that game? Why can't the Seahawks do anything? And is this just a case of, well, that's what happens when a team like the Seattle Seahawks plays a legit contender like the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah. God, I got a lot of thoughts on that. My biggest feeling the next day when I was sitting down and writing up my blog piece was that was as far removed from Pete Carroll football I think I've seen them play since probably 2010, 2011. I mean, even 100%. In 2011, they were sort of playing that Pete Carroll football. They couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't stop the run, and they were calling a lot of short dink and dunk passes from Gino. Not the few shots that they took down, the one tremendous shot they took down field on the flea flicker to DK got called back on a weird new sort of kind of penalty thing about how the blockers are charging off in a run block sort of way.
Is that new? I thought that was
apparently it's new. Apparently it's
because I've seen that flagged many times. I feel like
well, I was talking to a friend today, and he had heard on the radio that there was some sort of new ruling in that was just done within the last few weeks or so. So it wasn't like
it was ticky tack is what it was.
It was super ticky
tack.
I
totally disagree. It wasn't ticky tack. But within the context of the rule, he was 7 yards downfield, and the rule is you can't be more than 1 yard downfield. So like within the context of the rule, I agree that it didn't affect the play, but like neither did any of the DPIs that we got called for. I thought those were more impactful ultimately. Because they were all drive extenders.
Yeah.
But that particular one, he was way outside of his lane, operating in this like no man's land. You could see it on the replay. So I thought that flag was entirely deserved, and a really good learning moment.
He was
for
on
Lucas.
a man drive blocking him. That's what I thought.
He had blown through him so easily that by the time the throw happened, he was just running like 5 yards downfield.
Part about that.
Yeah, totally.
He's a rookie.
Totally.
But that's neither here nor there. I mean, the biggest takeaway from this game was not that play or even the crazy wildcat thing that they did down there. It was the fact,
which was just ridiculous,
that they could not stop the 49ers on the ground at the beginning of the game, and they couldn't stop them at the end of the game when it mattered. And they couldn't get a run game going. So you're just not going to win a lot of ball games if you don't have a marquee quarterback who can, pull you out of a tough jam. And, I mean, I don't want to slam on, Geno Smith or anything, but he's not that guy.
No, he's not that guy.
He needs to be supported by a more I mean, they only ran the ball. I think it was, I heard it on the radio. I think it was I think Penny got like 6 carries and Walker got 4.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's nuts. I mean, that's not winning football at all. And so, I mean, I'm just maybe it's good to get blown out like this early by a bitter division opponent to get that one flushed down the toilet, so that they can just get back to the fundamentals. And it sounds like from Pete Carroll that they want to air it out down the field more, which that translates to me as they've got to push the ball down the field to set up the pass, because right now defenses are going to sell out on the run, and if you're just going to dink and dunk, they're going to jam those short patterns, and it's all just going to get bugged up right at the line of scrimmage. So like Geno's got to play bigger time NFL football, hitting it downfield to be able to set up that run. They actually got to throw to set up the run.
This is a criticism that I had of this team this time last season, which is I don't see an identity in any phase of the game. I don't see what they're trying to do on defense. I don't see what they're trying to do on offense. I thought I saw it in the first 2 drives of that Broncos game where it looked like, that Rams style McVay offense with, a lot of misdirection and getting the ball out quickly and getting downfield. None of these like bubble screens to DK Metcalf on the line of scrimmage that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And up tempo, keeping the defense off balance. And then we completely got away from that.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're not running it. And even in that Broncos game, when Penny got off a couple long runs, I didn't quite understand what the identity in the run game was either. And I'm seeing that a little bit in the defense as well. I don't know if these are because we have a lot of rookies on the team and maybe they are missing assignments. But right now I see a team that doesn't know what it wants to do.
I think it's in a sort of, it's in a transitioning phase. I mean, it's a pretty dramatic shift to go from a traditional 4-3 defense into a 3-4 where you're just spread out further, you know. Like the ends
we have
sort of
some pretty
spread out
exciting
further.
players. Nwosu is doing really, really good.
Who has experience in that defense.
Yeah, and
knows
Boye
how to play
is
that
having
defense,
some.
but Daryl Taylor obviously seems pretty lost at this point.
Yeah.
And
But Millie,
go
ahead.
I just think, I mean, as the person who was the doomsayer on this game, there were a couple of things that I thought were great that really stood out to me. One, of course, being
DJ Dallas throwing a pass in the end zone.
We're talking about positives. One was, of course, Pocket Lockett, who, you know what, when you need to get out of a jam, you figure out where Lockett is. And
he had like 106 yards or something. He did.
Yeah. Good. I mean, he had a great game, right? Yeah. Because he is that guy. And I mean, it's really unfortunate that DK's that reception that he made on that play that got called back was absolutely phenomenal. And I do think that there's evidence that we can maybe try to do some deeper stuff here. But
and that Gino
Lockett
has the
was
accuracy.
great.
Gino's got the accuracy in the arm to go downfield. Like
there was one play that it's just stuck in my mind, and I don't know who from the 49ers it was, but suddenly there's this gap and there's Al Woods just alone.
Yeah.
And you see this little runner. Here he comes about, and he just sort of stopped for a second because you could like the fear in his eyes. It was like, oh shit.
Every time the camera went to Al Woods, he looked like a man among boys. He is so huge.
He did. And the blocked field goal was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of
fun. There goes Michael Jackson. There's these great there it is. There's these great little moments in that game that I think are seeds. And yeah, there was a lot of not good, and where were these moves that we had last week, and where were the tight ends? Like, just
it's
Harold made it sound like it was play calling, that it was that they just didn't, that they kept things too conservative to protect the rookie tackles against the Nick Bosa's and all that sort of stuff. So that's what he chalked it up as. Is they did not challenge that defense enough, which is, I think, is a fair point. You know,
we'll see what were you practicing all week? I mean, what were you preparing for? Just because they played in the rain and you couldn't see them well enough? They were a good defense last year. Like, I don't.
Yeah, these are fair questions to ask. They came out against the Broncos the week before in a similar sort of, kind of quick pass, get it out quickly sort of thing like that. I just think the 49er defense was ready for it. And I think they had more want to too. Like, 49ers lost an embarrassing game on the road to probably not a very good Chicago team, and I think that they wanted to, I just think they had more want to in that game. I think they wanted to block harder. I think they wanted to tackle harder. Seeing Daryl Taylor getting washed away on back-to-back run plays and whiffing that one play where he had Debo in the backfield dead to rights on that one. You remember that? And he just kind of lazily sort of arm tackled, and Debo just out of that and went 50 yards down the field. Like, that's to me is like, that's lack of, God, I hate to say that it's lack of want to, but it just didn't seem like, it didn't seem like Daryl Taylor was playing fierce on that play, like an Al Woods would be, or like, you know, an Encheno Nwosu. So I think that maybe, you know, again, this is, if I'm looking at it, the glass half full thing, maybe this is a good one to just flush down the toilet and realize like, hey, these games aren't easy. These opponents aren't easy. And if we're going to play in this style of defense, like you've got to have that want to. You've got
and Pete has come forth and said, like, we failed this test basically, and we're going to make some adjustments, and like knowing that makes it easier to look forward to what's next. Millie, what were you going to say?
There were two things that I was like, I wonder how much this matters. I mean, we learned week 1 that Tyler Lockett recognized all the hand signals that that Russell was using, so that was a little edge, right? And of course the 1-2. And then, you know, we lost Jamal Adams. And I think that they're, you know, whether you think he is playing up to his abilities or not, he's a big player and a big personality and an impact on that line. And I think that makes a difference too.
Yeah. Well, and I think
it's a big loss. I will say I'm not one of these Jamal Adams critics. I don't think he was used the right way last year, but by the looks of how that first, you know, series was against Denver, when he almost picked that one ball and backed Russ, it looks like he was in position, like he was making an impact on the field. He's a great player.
And one of his biggest impacts is as a leader. And, you know, for a young team, that's a big loss. Like they're going to miss that energy and that, you know, experience. And I think this team is going to be tested. You know, the leaders are going to have to step up, and, you know, we'll find out who those guys are. They get an easier matchup with Atlanta coming to Seattle. And so I think we're going to see, hopefully we'll see some improvements. I think the 49ers are just like in a class that Seattle just isn't in yet. And we saw what that is. One thing I'm looking forward to is Shaun Alexander, who was one of my favorite players in the Holmgren era. Shaun Alexander will be inducted into the Seahawks Ring of Honor on October 16th when the Cardinals come to town. And so, you know, now last year you had Matt Hasselbeck and Mike Holmgren, you know, inducted into the Seahawks Ring of Honor. And so it got me thinking a little bit about who the next generation of Ring of Honor guys are going to be in 5, 7, 10 years. Who are we going to see being inducted into the Ring of Honor? We have a ton of them that we can choose from that, you know, Legion of Boom era in 2012, 13, 14, 15. But I just kind of wanted to, you know, who is it? Who's going in? I think, you know, we can say the obvious ones are going to be Russell Wilson, probably, right? Marshawn Lynch is going to be going in. Bobby Wagner is going to be going in, right? Pete Carroll is going to be going into that Ring of Honor. But who are some of the bubble guys? You know, that's kind of who I'm thinking of. Like, who are some of the bubble guys that are going to be going into the Ring of Honor?
I think some of the people that we think might be bubble guys, because we think of them as bubble or not Hall of Famers, because I think that there's a different level between Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame.
Certainly.
Are going to be like,
I mean, Shaun Alexander will never make the Hall of Fame, but he's going to the Ring of Honor. Yeah.
But like Cliff is a really good example there, right? Like I don't think people think of him as an absolute Ring of Honor guy, but the work that he's been done and continue to do around the Seahawks for the media stuff and being engaged and in that building every day during the season, like I think that that's really meaningful in terms of whether or not we consider him a Ring of Honor guy. And I think that's the same is true for Doug, who's stuck around Seattle. I think he's a surefire Ring of Honor guy just based on what he's done for the city. But I also think KJ is there too. I think we're going to face some like tough decisions around that. I mean, not that we have any influence on the decision, but we're going to have to expand that Ring of Honor quite a bit. I think that we have to induct like probably 8 people from that era. Yeah. And I think it's it's basically everybody but Earl. And I think that when you leave, when your last game with this team is flipping off the coach,
flipping off your coach,
and then also when you kind of like, and I recognize that there are extenuating circumstances in circumstance, but like his like the last 2 years of his career were an absolute tire fire in a way that I think he might have torpedoed his own Hall of Fame candidacy. Unfortunately. And I think that there are probably, I don't want to speculate, but I think that anytime you see a professional NFL athlete going through that, it's hard not to go concussions, CTE, like CTE, it's really hard not to step there because like they all have CTE, and it impacts certain people in certain ways. So all of that is to say, I think that there are some really tremendous athletes and tremendous people from that team. I do want to mention that, kind of looking at the whole course of people that could go in, the only lifelong Seahawks that we have that would be coming up would be Doug, potentially Lockett, which is a few years down the line. And who's the other person?
Cam.
That's it. Like Sherm, Earl, Bobby, not his fault. KJ, not his fault. Russ, they all played for other teams. And so it's, and Cliff came here after playing for Detroit, and Bennett came here, and Bennett played all over. But I think that there's a lot of reason to celebrate that era when thinking about how they're going to represent us into the future. And the fact that they're all kind of in-house right now is really exciting and tremendous.
I think so too. I love that they're all in-house, including Cliff Averill, who was on the sideline in the season opener.
He works for the team. He does pregame stuff, and he has, he's around all the time, and I think that that's a big part of the reason why I think he's going to get in.
Yeah, I thought about this because, I was thinking about some of the Seahawks that defined that Holmgren era, and like, who else would go into the Ring of Honor? You got Matt Hasselbeck and,
Walter
Shaun
Jones,
Alexander, and then I was like Lofa Tatupu, Marcus Trufant, and
Walter Jones.
Well, who
Jones is in there already.
Yeah.
But Robbie Tobeck, and some of these guys who define that Holmgren era, but I have a hard time with it in ways that I don't with Cam Chancellor or KJ Wright. And there was, I think, something really special about that Pete Carroll team where those players like bled Seahawks in ways that I don't know if I saw from other teams. What do you think, Millie?
Well, I was just looking at the list because one of my questions, like, well, who is in the Ring of Honor for the Seahawks? And it's
Cortez
short.
Kennedy,
Largent, Kennedy, Jones.
There's only 14 players in the Ring of Honor. So when we start throwing out
14?
all of these names,
they
all sound legit. But when I look at how, I'm guessing, how few people actually get this honor, like, I'm starting to wonder what's the criteria and what are the limitations, because there's a lot of people you just named and they all legitimately have a place in the history. And especially as somebody who's not like up on the, especially older Seahawk history, I don't know who some of these players are. Perfectly frank, I don't know Jacob Green and Pete Gross.
Oh my God, Jacob Green was amazing.
And Pete Gross was a radio.
He was by far and away like the best pass rusher Seattle ever had as a franchise.
I think it's interesting though, right? Like, we've never really had a team that defined an era that was almost a dynasty. I mean, I guess you can say that like Legion of Boom era, early 10s was a dynasty, even though we only, won one championship. But,
Yeah.
I think of that team, like the Cowboys probably think of their dynasty team in the
Mhm.
90s, and the San Francisco 49ers think of their dynasty team in the late 80s,
Yeah.
where you just have that many great players on the team.
Yeah. But I'm looking at this list. It's like 14 people. One's a radio announcer, 2 are head coaches, and 1 is Paul Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So player-wise, it's not an honor.
But we didn't have success prior to 2005. So we've recently seen Hasselbeck go in, Walter Jones go in, and now Shaun Alexander go in. And I would argue that Tatupu is maybe the only other one from that core group that would probably make it
That's
in.
what I would think. He
But
played.
his career was so short that it sort of feels like that's very fringy for me.
True.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I wouldn't
legit.
consider that a lot.
Does
Yeah.
John Schneider get in?
I think John Snyder
John
gets in.
Snyder and Pete Carroll will probably go in together. I
Yeah.
would assume.
Yeah.
They're joined at the
But then,
hip.
I mean, we move forward and we move into our generational team. And
Yeah.
that's our first generational team.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are 8 players that I'm thinking about putting in, I think that's legit. I think you have to acknowledge it. It can still be a meaningful space. It's not like we're retiring all their numbers. Although, there might be reason to retire somebody's number in there. But yeah, I'm guessing that the person they probably cut is Doug. But like, if you cut Doug, like all that work he does for the community and continues to do for the community, and the fact that he's an undrafted UDFA,
Yeah.
and the work that he put in to get there, and the
And played his entire career in Seattle.
and played his entire career in Seattle. And really, in my mind, on the offensive, I know that like Cam is the heart of the team, but I also thought that Doug was to a large degree.
Sure.
Just how he played.
Right.
And Marshawn was.
Cam? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Marshawn's in for definitively
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you have to make space for the idea that something is special.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
I've been circling back to the fact that it's taken this long for Shaun Alexander to get into the Ring of Honor. And Shaun Alexander was a league MVP.
Yeah. He
Like that's
set
a
record.
huge accomplishment. Name another
Mhm.
Seahawk that was ever a league MVP.
Yeah. Russell Wilson.
There's not one. Like he's the only one that's ever grabbed that. And it's taken him 20 years almost.
And
I
he
mean,
was a running back who
yeah.
got league MVP,
I know.
like during a passing era.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was rare. It was super rare. So I kind of feel like Alexander's been due for like a number of years. So when I see this, which I agree is a very legitimate long list of about 8, Seahawks from the Super Bowl team that are deserving. I just think it's going to be a long time before. I mean, for me, we should be putting Marshawn in the same year we're putting Shaun Alexander in.
Yeah, sure.
Because
But he only retired 2 years ago. I think there's a big difference there, right?
Yeah, but to me, it's just so, yeah, I don't know. You just mentioned the whole like retiring numbers and stuff. I get really weirded out when I see a 24 on a current Seahawk player.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It doesn't bother me when I see Doug's number or Cam's number or another number, but when I see 24, I'm just kind of like, could you just please not have him wear that number? But we all sort of hang on to our faves, I guess. But yeah.
Well, it'll be fun. I'm super happy for Shaun Alexander, and I hope he gets all the love that he's due. I think he's gotten a bad rap from Seahawks fans over the years, and he doesn't deserve it. He does deserve to go into the Ring of Honor. So we got Atlanta coming to town. I have to be honest with you guys. I've been trying to think of what my prediction will be for this game, and I have no idea how this game is going to go. I think Atlanta is a weird wild card team, and I just don't have my finger on their pulse. So Millie, before we get started, how did we do last week?
Oh, you all did horribly. The Seahawks lost. You all said they would win. I said they would lose. So
What was the final score? It was like 28-7,
27-7.
27-7.
27-7. Oof. That was a
Yeah.
butt
And our offense didn't score that.
no,
touchdown.
that was special teams.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if Alana had swapped her scores, she would have been closer. She had a much wider range between the two teams. The rest of us thought it would be relatively close. But
Who wants to take the first crack at these Atlanta predictions?
I'm going to the game, so I'm going to say the Seahawks are going to win.
What's the score?
I'm going to say we're going to win. Gino's going to air it out. We're going to win. We're going to win 27-24.
Wow. Okay.
It's going to come down to a field goal, but we'll pull it out.
Yeah. Alana, what do you got?
I think that we're going to score another special teams touchdown. I think that we're going to score 3 offensive touchdowns. I think we're going to kick a field goal. I think we're going to have 31, and it's going to be a surprise. I think we're going to be a team that wins a lot at home and not a lot on the road.
Sure.
I think Atlanta sucks whole. They're one of the 4 crappy teams we have on our schedule this year. I'm going to say 31-17.
Wow. Millie, what do you got?
well, once again, I don't have the Seahawks winning.
No, this is.
But why? Who does Atlanta have?
So here's the thing, and this is where sometimes, because of my involvement in fantasy, my view on certain players is a little different. And my fear, the Seahawks historically do horribly against tight ends, and Kyle Pitts was projected to be one of the best tight ends this season, and he has not had his breakout game yet. And considering how we cover tight ends, I think this is his breakout game. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to be the death of the Seahawks in week 3. And I think the Hawks lose 27-20.
I would agree with you if anyone other than Marcus Mariota was throwing him in the ball, because that guy sucks.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
Atlanta has been in the game, so they played.
They played the Rams pretty good, but the Rams got skunked by the Bills. So I can't tell if from that match over the weekend if that was a good Rams team showing up, or if that's just the fact that the Rams actually do suck. And a suck-ass team.
This is what I'm saying. And the first game Atlanta played was against New Orleans, and I don't know, is New Orleans a bad team or a good team? I don't know yet.
It's
and
none
they
of
got
us
Marcus
know.
Mariota behind center. I don't believe in this
games
guy. I don't know.
I think the only good team, I think that the Bills are an historically good team this year.
I agree.
I think that the Bills are going to have the best offensive season of all time. They are, most points scored. They're going to break whatever that record is. They are unbelievable. And they got the defense to match it. They just demolished Tennessee on Monday. And Tennessee's not a joke. They've got Derrick Henry. Right. Yeah. And they've got good receivers.
Made Stafford look foolish, and they've made Tannehill look foolish. And
you
can say what you
and
will
those are two
those quarterbacks, but those are 2 seasoned
playoff caliber
quarterbacks that they made.
I think if this were on the road, this would be a team that this Seahawks team this early in the season would drop. I think the fact that Atlanta's coming to Seattle bodes well. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm saying 23-20 Seahawks.
All right, homers.
I think Gino's going to be able to move the ball a bit in this one, and I think the defense is actually going to be pretty okay. but they're going to give up some dumb big plays a couple times, and that'll get this team in the game.
They got to play that Boye Mafe better. His he had I mean, he stepped in for Taylor and looked like a starting edge rusher to me.
I like him. I say, you know, this is a season to just give all those rooks some experience and trial by fire. Let's move on to some Mariners. Mariners, unfortunately, yesterday they whooped the crap out of the Angels, but then lost to the A's 4-1, I think is what the final score was. And all 4 of those runs came in 1 inning, which just really sucked. This Mariners team is beat up right now. Julio didn't play last week for back spasms, some back injury. Eugenio Suarez jammed a finger and got put on a 10-day injury designation. And then our big dumper, Cal Raleigh, is out as well. And I don't know how long that is, but those were our 3 power hitters. Like that was
plus a little Santana.
And Santana, but if you're talking about like the number of home runs, that was 1, 2, 3. That was Julio's back. Didn't look great today, but that's what happens when a player comes back from injury. I'm not saying it's time to panic. I think it's a virtual lock, even if the Mariners end up going under 500 the rest of the way. There's no way Baltimore can catch up to this. The Mariners are going into the playoffs, and I just want to reassure the Mariners fans who are running around like chickens with their head cut off, saying the sky is falling because the Mariners have lost like 4 games in a week. Relax, it's fine. The Mariners are going to the playoffs. But that was the Mariners live and die by their power hitting. Like that's kind of been their the way they've won their games, right? It's dominant pitching, it's great fielding, and then it's 2 or 3 really well placed home runs in the game that kind of get you all your points. The Mariners are not the team that gets a lot of hits and runs and gets their points that way. So when they played the Angels yesterday, it looked good to me that some guys were stepping up. Ty France finally started getting some hits. JP wasn't hitting home runs, but he was getting on base, and then Santana was hitting some dingers. And I thought, all right, maybe these guys, but then they disappeared today. And I don't like, is it time to hit the panic button a little bit? If we're good, if we're not about like not making the playoffs, but if we're going into October and we're missing some of these clutch guys like Suarez and Cal Raleigh have been like won multiple games for the Mariners, late innings when we needed them the most. Where do the Mariners go from here? If we end up losing Suarez for maybe even like the first series of the playoffs, are we going to be okay? And who steps up to take his place? Alana, what do you think?
I think that my gut here is that I'm not worried. I think that all things considered, the 3rd wildcard slot is actually the most preferable.
Agreed.
Because you get to play Cleveland as opposed to Toronto or Tampa in Toronto or Tampa. And if you win, you get to go to New York as opposed to going to Houston. So like having a little gamesmanship in that regard. Like, don't get me wrong. I personally would rather them win out and take that 3-game series here. I think that's better for Seattle, but maybe for this team, it'd be better to like travel to Cleveland. And I don't think the Geno thing really blows.
He was playing so well too.
Yeah,
he was on a rhythm.
Yeah, but I don't think we lose his bat regardless. I think his bat will come back soon. I just think we lose him on the field. Because
and some of this, I think, might be service just playing it safe.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly the case with Julio. Like if we were really in the wild card hunt, I think Julio probably would have played. But the fact that we're so far ahead of Baltimore means that we can afford to kind of like sit some guys when we need to.
And I just think the main thing for me is like get into the playoffs. Like we've waited 21 years.
Yeah.
Like so I don't care. Like lose all the rest of your games. Okay. Like get into the playoffs. I don't care.
That's how I feel. And speaking to your point, that third wild card spot. Now I'm a guy, I'm like, don't play the seeding.
Right.
Win as much as he was. So like, you know, that's what we should do. But, you know, there's a part of me that kind of wants that third wild card spot because of the 13 games that we played total versus Cleveland and Yankees, we won 10 of them. And that's just like, that's a really good matchup. Whereas, I mean, we swept the Jays, but man, they've been a hard team to play for, I don't know, 10 years. Also, if we have to go into Toronto, we may or may not have guys who cannot travel with that team because of their COVID.
I just saw a headline that they're dropping the COVID requirement.
Oh, wow.
Fascinating.
Okay.
So that's that makes it interesting.
Robbie Ray just toasted to himself.
Yeah. Now it was just a headline, so there might be more to it, but the headline was basically about dropping the COVID, and and then the next line was Robbie Ray, and I didn't click it because paywalls. But I'm pretty sure that's what the article is saying.
Well, regardless, I'm still super happy about this team, even if we kind of like limp into the playoffs. I think it's a near certainty we're going to hit 90 wins, if not more. I still think that we can get to 92 wins. This is a team that'll drop a few and then just go on a crazy like 7-win streak. So, you know, go Mariners. This is really exciting. And I can't wait to watch baseball in October.
For sure. I just wanted to let you know too that so Cal Raleigh, it's a thumb and it's day to day. So
well, that's not so bad.
That's not so bad. It sounds like it's
that's another one where like if we were really in the hunt, right? Like if we were really battling, he might be able to play, and this could be a case of just service playing it safe. I don't know.
Play it safe.
Play it safe. And this is also a next man up team. That's what they've been all season long. So go M's.
Stop losing to Oakland though. Like
stop losing, and the fucking Angels.
And the Angels.
Yeah. At least we eliminated
Houston at some point. Like
I do like ago. That our
they did.
Our win against the Angels yesterday is what officially eliminated them from the postseason. So, you know, I'll take that.
That felt good.
Yeah, that did feel good. Go M's. This is really fun. Let's get into some Dorking. You want to get into some Dorking?
No.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's dork.
Let's dork. Who wants to start? Who's really excited to dork out about something?
I started Discovery like
oh shit.
About 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and I've got like 4 episodes left, so I'm caught up.
Oh my god! So you've got to the part with the trans trill and
yeah,
and the gay daddies who
God, I'm just crying so much, like just like all these relationships are just so well earned, and the Saru Michael relationship is genuinely one of the best relationships on all of TV, because
Doug Jones is so good.
Doug Jones is and they were like, hey Doug, we got you a present. It's Bill Irwin and he's your fake son. And it was just like I was watching this and I was like, please more. There was a moment where Bill Irwin as Sakal, is that right? Turned and looked at Saru, and it was just like a type of face, but it was all of the acting in the world. It was brilliant. It was an absolutely brilliant reaction because Bill Irwin is amazing and a Seattleite.
That's right.
Like he is just a tremendous actor, and the fact that they got him was great. So I've been thrilled. watching it. I am so much. I've always said that I'm more interested in Star Trek, despite never really watching it, than I am Star Wars. I would consider myself more of a Trekkie than a Star Wars person, and this just firms that up for me. And you know, having watched the Orville and loved the Orville, especially the third season. The third season of the Orville is spectacular. And sharing that with Svea, and now I'm like, hey, maybe you'd like Discovery too. And we watched the first episode. She's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be into this. So like, she's entering that phase in her life where she's like liking sci-fi. And we saw a thing about Quantum Leap, and she's like, I want to try that too. And so it's like, I'm just like, yeah, all this geeky sci-fi stuff that's all about how humanity's great. Like, I'm all for it. So that I'm geeking on that, and I geeked on A League of Their Own too. Very quickly. So I'm not going to talk about that, but you should watch A League of Their Own, especially if you're queer.
I can't wait till you watch Strange New Worlds, because I think
that's nice.
that one too.
Yeah.
I was planning on geeking out. I finally started Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Oh yeah,
I was really looking forward to it. I like the Assassin's Creed franchise. I like Vikings, and I sat down, and I haven't played a long video game in a while, and I was really excited. And that game is trash.
Yeah.
It is trash. Don't play it. It's a bad game. The mechanics are bad. The acting is bad. It is a trash game, and I'm angry I spent money on it.
I'm sorry. I agree with you. Like, I did the Egypt one, and then the Greek one, and then
which was terrific. The Greek
one
was
of them
terrific. Yeah.
And then I did the Valhalla, and I got 2 hours into it, and I was
That's
like,
about what I got. Yeah. And I was like, why am I playing this? This game sucks. It's trash. So I'm not going to dork out on that one. That's what I was planning on. But I've been reading this new fantasy series by Robin Hobb, who is a local writer, and she wrote a fantasy series. It's a 16-book series that she started writing in the 90s called, it's broken up into several trilogies, and the first one is called the Farseer trilogy. And I am just in love with it. I am in love with this series that I haven't been in love with in a long time. And it follows one person from his point of view. It's written in first person, which I normally don't care for, but the way this one is written, it's just so wonderful, and it is just packed with plot. And so, you know, there's a lot of like this high fantasy where it's these thick books, and it's a lot of just a lot of world building, and not a lot happens, you know, Game of Thrones and the like setting up the chess pieces. This is not like that. This is just like, it is plot. It is packed from first page to last page, and you can't put it down. And it is full of just these really great relationships, and it's really great. And I can't recommend it highly enough. It's called the Farseer trilogy. The first book is called Assassin's Apprentice. And the world is very interesting, and mysteries galore, and I can't wait to read the next, 13 books. So fuck you, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Fuck you. I was really looking forward to playing with
the new one's supposed to change it all, so we'll look forward to that. We'll play together.
Excellent. There it is. What are you dorking out about?
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff I've been watching. I've been getting into the to the Lord of the Rings show on
Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Yeah, the I mean, the cinematography of it is terrific. There's more colorblind casting this time around in Middle Earth, which is different and refreshing from the movies. And
by the way, just speaking on that, if anybody is on the Twitters, go look up Neil Gaiman's tweets, because Neil Gaiman just like battled the trolls on some of the colorblind casting in that Amazon Prime show, and it's fantastic.
So what's that all about? I don't know anything about that.
Neil Gaiman
there's a whole
is a
bunch of-
writer, wrote Sandman, and he just spent a whole day battling trolls on Twitter who were mad because some hobbits are black.
There are white supremacists out there who are like, oh, there were no black hobbits during that time, just like there are no black mermaids. But
Well, that's the dumbest shit on the planet. I don't even give it space. For me, I'm in, and I'll just say this, that like I was a fan of the films that came out 20 years ago, the first two, especially the fourth one or the third one, which might as well have been the fourth one, because it was so fucking long. It just kind of like, by the time I got like halfway through the Return of the King movie, I was just kind of like, I turned to the person I was with at the time, and I was just like, if I have to hear one more melodramatic soliloquy from Samwise speaking to Frodo and stuff, I'm gonna fucking throw my popcorn. This film, anyhow, I like those films, but I think I actually kind of like this whole prequel television show better. The orcs are legitimately terrifying on this TV show. It kind of plays like a horror movie in moments. I mean, the way they build the tension and stuff, it's just like was way more than what I thought Peter Jackson did in the film. So I'm kind of digging it. Yeah.
I've actually been watching.
I'm not a token person, so I don't know. I've not having read like all his books and everything. I'm not one of those people that's gonna yell and scream about it, but I like it.
Yeah, I'm not either, and I've actually been watching the Hobbit trilogy because I know I saw the Hobbit in the theater, and then I never saw the other two, and so I've been slowly working my way
Same here.
in anticipation of watching the TV series, and watching them almost like little chapters instead of at their full length. And I'm really enjoying this story now beyond the first, actual Hobbit book, which is ingrained in my childhood from a cartoon, right?
Sure.
So
that cartoon's so good.
We know it's so well, but the story of Smaug and now the Battle of the Five Armies and all this, and the gold and the jewel and all this, I don't know the story, so I'm really enjoying working my way through it, and I'm doing it in anticipation of watching that TV show. So that's awesome, Curtis. I'm more excited now than ever.
Yeah,
I've been really hooked into it.
There's lots of good TV. It's just ridiculous good TV on right now.
I also am almost all the way caught up on Reservation Dogs too. I know that's something that both Daniel, you, and Curtis are watching.
Yeah, that's a great show.
Yeah, I love that.
I loved it a lot. The last one I watched was the cheese episode, and I loved it.
We're
still in season 1, but I'll get
Millie,
there.
what are you dorking out about?
It's funny because you did kind of a hate dork. I have a hate dork to do.
Yeah, I love hate dorks. Yeah, this is the hate dork episode.
I really like to warn people against wasting their time on on certain especially like popular shows. And I don't know that it stayed in the top 10 on Netflix still, but Devlin, Ohio is just the worst trash series, and I think it's at least 8 episodes, so I'm seriously saving you a day of your life. It should have been a Lifetime movie. It is basically Emily Deschanel, who I love from Bones, is this somewhat traumatized adult who takes in a young woman from the hospital. She's a doctor, and ends up taking her into her home. She's escaped from this cult. The cult's gonna get her, and it's so bad. And I'll tell you what, the ending is just gonna make you angry, so don't watch it.
I won't.
Bad.
It's 45% on Rotten Tomatoes, just so we all have that in our lives.
So this is not a Black Mass situation where apparently I'm just wrong. People agree with me on this one.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Don't watch it. I am very much racing through, because I have never seen it, Schitt's Creek. And
Ah,
Mm.
love
I
it.
promised myself it would be my COVID show. So when COVID hit, that was the deal. It is leaving Netflix on October 3rd. So I'm getting through it as quickly as I can, which is not difficult because it is just charming and it is interesting. I always heard it gets better. What I didn't understand about how it gets better is the fact that you're going to cry every episode out of some sort of warm,
Yep.
fuzzy joy.
Yeah.
Not just that, like it gets better because these characters are no longer quite so shallow. They kind of had to exist in that shallowness to become who they are
Yeah.
in the later seasons. It's just a joy, and
Mhm.
they live in your head.
I
It's
love
just
it.
a really brilliant show, and I'm glad I'm finally on the
Moira
train.
Rose has a little home in my heart.
Patrick has a home in my heart.
Oh yeah. I hold that show up with The Good Place and Ted Lasso as just
Mhm.
these really heartwarming and yet also biting
Yeah.
commentary. Really smart comedies. Yeah. I adore that
Unfortunate
show.
news for all of us is that it sounds like Ted Lasso season 3 is a total dumpster fire right now.
In
In
the
that,
shooting or like
in the shooting, they started shooting in. Well, they turned in scripts in January, and then Sudeikis went home and was like, "These are all garbage," and rewrote them all. And then they
Oh.
started shooting in March, but then they've been filming and refilming a whole lot. And Warner Brothers is letting no one out of their contracts, so they're not super like interested in like doing much. The actors and excuse me. Warner Brothers is really pissed off because the shooting is taking a lot longer and it's gone way over budget, and we have no idea when the next season is going to start. So my guess
That
is
could be
actually
either
that it's
really
not going to
bad
be.
or really good.
Yeah, it just sounds like there's a whole lot of discord, and I think one thing that's been revealed during the "Don't Worry, Baby" or whatever that Olivia Wilde movie is that Jason Sudeikis is kind of a petty bitch. And so maybe we gotta like we might have to put our expectations in this will come sometime, and I don't know what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
Isn't the guy who plays Coach Beard he's like the writer? Isn't he the chief writer on that? Isn't that his?
He's one of the co-creators. It was co-created by him and Ted Sudeikis and Bill Lawrence, who was the guy who made Scrubs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and Clone High for those deep cuts.
Whether it's good or terrible, I'm in. I'll watch
Well,
it.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
sure.
watch it, yeah,
Oh,
sure.
I'll watch it, absolutely.
I mean, I'll watch even if it's a train wreck. I'm watching that. I mean, a
Yeah.
Ted Lasso train wreck actually kind of sounds a little.
I wouldn't mind it. Yeah. I'll take it. All right. Well, good. Hey, if you're listening to this show and you like it, you can find us on Spotify and Apple, and we're now on Stitcher. If you know what Stitcher is, I didn't last week, but we're on it now.
Nice.
Wherever else you get your podcasts. And if you can't find us wherever you get your podcasts, just send us a message and we'll get it where you like to get your podcasts. We're also on the YouTubes if you want to see our pretty faces and some of our backgrounds here. And while you're at it, check out Curtis's blog, 12thlife.com. He's always got some great things to say, especially during the Seahawks season. Once again, my name is Daniel, for Alana, Curtis, Millie, the rest of the 12 saying goodbye. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.